Alright, so before moving on, I wanted us to spend a little bit of time to take a look at a sample template file. In this case, the header.php. I want us to take a closer look at the actual code itself that makes up a template file and what you can expect to see in other template files as well. Now, right from the very top right here, you can see we do have our opening PHP tag in red, and we also have the closing PHP tag for this section in here as well. One of the requirements for this course is that you have at least a basic understanding of how PHP actually works. It's very important. In here, you can see we have some text in green. Whenever you see such text, now let me put out a small disclaimer here. This is Notepad++. The text editor you're using might have a different color for comments or for text, so just beware of that. But if you're using Notepad++, it's very often in green. So whenever you see anything in green, that simply means a comment. It's not actually part of the code. What you have there though is just maybe a brief description of the next block of code, or maybe a description of what that actual file is all about. And in this case right now, you can see all the text saying, this is the header for our theme. This is the template that displays all of the head section and everything up until the div ID content section. So that's why everything in here is in green. And just to give you a quick pointer, whenever you're inside of a PHP code block, in this case right now, you can see we have the opening right here, and then we have the closing just over here as well. So whenever you're inside of a PHP block of code and you want to write a comment, the typical way would be to have the / and then an asterisk. Now, for some reason, in this case, we do have two asterisks, as you can see. It's not compulsory to have two. You can go with one right now, as you can see, and everything will still be fine. But I have noticed that in many WordPress themes, they typically tend to start with two or have two asterisks. So it is something that you might want to do as well, just to keep up the WordPress tradition, so to say. Or you can just ignore it and do your own thing. It's fine. I'm going to add the asterisk back. So once you have the / and then the two asterisks, you can begin to type in your comments. You don't have to have the asterisks at the beginning of each new line. You don't have to. You can just type in your text and you'll be good to go. And at the very end right here, we do have the closing asterisk with the / as well. Very important. That signals the end of the comments section. So that's just to give you a quick pointer. Now, you may have noticed that down in here, we do have some other comments as well. We have site branding, we have site navigation, we have masthead. Now, these are written in a different way. We have the opening bracket, and then we have the apostrophe sign, and then two dashes, and then some space, and then at the end, we have two dashes, and then the closing bracket. This type of commenting is for HTML. It's not for PHP, it's for HTML. So note the difference. Whenever you're making comments inside of a PHP block, you start off with the / and then the asterisk, and then you close it with the asterisk and then the /. But if you are making a comment inside of HTML, you typically want to go with the opening tag apostrophe and then the two dashes, and then put in your comment, and then the two dashes, and then the closing tag. Very important to realize the difference between the two. But don't worry, we're going to do lots of this as we progress in the course. But now let's take a look at the actual code itself. I want you to, for now, just forget about what we have at the top in here. This is just some HTML stuff which we don't need to worry ourselves about. But coming down here right now, you can see that we do have lots of different classes and IDs. I'm talking about CSS in this case. We do have the ID for page, we have the class for site, we have some other IDs in here like masthead, site header for the class. We have another class here, site branding, and so on and so forth. So this is something you will find in many template files, IDs and classes for different template tags and blocks of code. But let's take a closer look again in here where we have the header, ID masthead. you can see we do have a class here that says site branding, and then we have custom logo right here. We also have things like the blog info, description. So right now you should be thinking to yourself, okay, this is the block of code that controls how the logo is displayed. It's also the block of code that determines how our blog info and blog description, or site description rather, is being displayed as well. And then down here you can see we also have the nav, ID of site navigation, we have main navigation, we have primary menu, and we have stuff like that. So again, you should already be thinking to yourself, okay, this would probably be the block of code that controls how our main navigation is displayed. This are one of the ways how you can interpret the code that you have inside of a template file. Simply look at the words, what the words are. You see navigation, you should be thinking, okay, that's the main navigation. You see logo, you should be thinking, okay, this is the part that controls the main logo, and so on and so forth. So this is one way how you can quickly recognize what a particular block of code is doing. So that's pretty much it for the kinds of code that you will find inside of a template file. Very, very important that you have a decent understanding of HTML, CSS, and of course the basics of PHP. So that's it. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next class.